Salutations, toothbrush chewers. You're probably wondering how I got on top of this arch. Well, stick around to the end of the video and I probably won't tell you. It's no clip. I just no clipped up here. And I didn't really think about this beforehand, but it's kind of dangerous getting down. So if this is where I'm fated to meet my demise, then so be it, I guess. Time to start the video. Let's go. Let's do it. Did I do it? Or... Shadow of the Erdtree brings 103 new weapons to the table, and although I've already come to terms with my inevitable destiny and what that means for me, I am a man who likes to work smarter, so instead of ranking them all at once, or even by respective categories, I'm just gonna do the simple task of lining up what I think are the most glossed over, underrated weapons nobody gives a shit about and should give a shit about. So that means no Rolana's Twin Blades, no Dragon Hunter, no Starline Sword, Night Sword, pretty much no katanas, like, at all. No backhand blades, none of that frost foo bullshit you saw in Fextra Life. We're digging deep into the dregs of hell for this one, and unearthing the diamonds this community has all but glossed over, because they saw how powerful Impenetrable Thorns was and marched right through the DLC like it was a bump in the road on the way to seeing their daughter's 5th grade trumpet recital. Wait, what? What do you mean? What do you mean check the website? They just dropped a patch, are you serious? Well, god fucking damn it. Alright. Do I dare? Just one change. One change is all I care about. You'll make my day. Just please tell me you fixed it. Of course not. Why the fuck would you, honestly? Number 9, the Horned Warrior's Greatsword. Probably the second greatest physical CGS in the game's weapon pool, trailing only slightly behind the Bloodhound's Fang. It might not be my favorite weapon, it's only barely my favorite CGS, and I'll explain why in just a minute, but it has one of the best and most honorable traits a weapon could have. It has a unique skill that's more than capable enough to rank among the giants, the colossi, the biblical ballers with names demanding respect, yet the standard R1s on it are still more than anything you'd ever need. That is the sign of a great weapon in my book. It can show off when it needs to, but it's perfectly within reasonable power level of stimulating the ancient caveman recesses of your brain by smacking down literal gods with a couple basic bonks on the head. Even the descalings in Dex and Faith aren't completely bad. If you're on a New Game Plus build with 80s and multiple stats, that extra help is gonna start adding up after a while, but the high B in strength is the obvious focus. It's what a people's weapon would be if said person had loose surface level connections to the bourgeoisie. If you're not impressed by it, it's because it doesn't deem you worthy of its effort or respect. However, this is unfortunately where my high praises must come to an end, because herein lies a strangely recurring problem in how FromSoft tends to handle its weapon balancing, and ultimately why this CGS ended up being at the bottom of this list. FromSoft, as you'd have likely observed already, has a nasty habit where they cook up the most wonderful weapons and unique skills, and then outsource the game balancing to Jacob from GameStop. Tested at 80 strength, dexterity, and faith, the first 2 hits of the weapon skill hit for 1954, 83, and 1905 respectively. This shouldn't happen, right? Dex and Faith even have the same exact scaling on this CGS, even down to the decimal point, which is 0.25 at +0. So why am I hitting for more damage with 80 Faith than I am with 80 Dex? Well, this is because the unique skill also tacks on a flat 35 holy damage per hit, something you probably wouldn't have even noticed unless you dug into the game's parameters like I did. I am just getting sick of this shit, honestly. It's not even that bad. It's not like FromSoft has engaged in dire affronts to humanity, summoning demons in their basement or anything. I'm not throwing bitch fits at my roommate about it. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it, and I want to understand. I want to understand why this game's weapon scaling system just can't help itself from being so misleading at times. Number 8, Poleblade of the Bud. The somber arcane weapon pool is not a small one, but they do tend to share a particularly annoying theme with a particularly annoying status effect. A status effect that might not serve you as well as you think it will in the final area of the game. If you're initially dissuaded by its slightly weaker physical damage than most other halberds, then, well, I mean, firstly, you probably just leveled yourself like a goober because there's honestly nothing wrong with its damage, and secondly, it uses the alternate halberd moveset of the Guardian Sword Spear, which heightens its DPS by a pretty significant amount. Tested against the Dragon Halberd, it still outpaces it in damage quite a bit, even without its rot buildup. The second hit on its unique skill, and the subsequent butterflies it spawns in, is very difficult to miss with, and the unique skill slinging your character around like a sloppily put together roller coaster at the county fair sometimes leads to you accidentally avoiding an attack or two. But something I've been recently thinking about in regards to rot builds is that there's no expedited delivery option that comes with its DOT. Poison builds get the Mothflight Ash, but the only thing you can really do after giving someone the rot is just pray to God they leave you the fuck alone and get distracted by a shiny penny on the other side of the arena or something. So technically my only real complaint with this weapon just so happens to be my scathing review against the rot system itself, the Rot Institution. The Scarlet College, if you will. It's still a wholesale ass kick of a weapon, all of its positives ring true nonetheless, and you're still just one talisman away from having one of the baddest builds in the business. Number 7, the Sword of Light, and the Sword of Darkness, both of them, both of these right here. Sometimes I feel a bit sorry for FromSoft. They've obviously taken a liking to adding purposefully shitty weapons into the pool, but I can't help but feel like it was never meant to be taken as seriously as it was by the rest of the community. Like surprising your pet-averse grandpa with a stray unvaccinated cat as an April Fool's joke and then realizing you have to support it for the next 15 fucking years. Whenever we find a bad weapon like the soup ladle or the broken straight sword, we just can't stop ourselves from trying to make it viable.
Hey, I'm having some trouble doing damage with this sword.
Well, that's because it's a broken straight sword. You just got pranked, bitch. Wasn't that funny?
I mean, I guess, but it would be great if it did more damage or something.
Well, yeah, we made it deal shitty damage on purpose. That's part of the joke.
I can't beat the final boss with the broken sword you gave me.
No, you're not supposed to. Okay, God fucking damn it. Fine, here's an altar. Use the shitty sword here and it'll turn into something else. Yeah, okay? Are we good? These two swords have some of the flashiest unique skills in the DLC, which, if you aren't careful, can run sort of contradictory to what the word underrated means, but I would still consider these underrated because for every one person I see discovering how wonderfully these swords handle groups of enemies, there seem to be 87 others salivating over the large katana that does large katana things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I am saying is the DLC still being relatively new means you're on a fucking timer, so you might want to try out something new before people start dogpiling on you. Number 6, the Deadly Poison Perfume Bottle, and the Chilling Perfume Bottle, and fuck it, the entire Perfume Bottle weapon class just belongs up here, because now that talisman is finally something worth giving a double-fisted fuck about. But mostly the Deadly Poison variant, because I think people see that its unique skill poisons you automatically, and they just don't want to have anything to do with it. Let me explain why you should fight that ancient reptilian brain of yours and embrace that HP sap. This weapon indirectly buffs 2 tools in the base game. Okay, well, 3 technically counting the Perfumer's Talisman, but I already mentioned that one. The other 2 are Rot Exaltation, which didn't even need any help, and Poison Mothflight, which may have needed one. I don't know. I don't use it enough to have an opinion. But I may have given it some bad press in a previous life or something, maybe. And now my good Samaritan ass is trying to slap an undo button on that shit so more people will pay attention to it. Okay, so if you don't know, PMF, 1, is a really funny acronym, and 2 acts as a sort of poison detonation button. Getting hit with it while poisoned immediately takes all the poison damage you would have had to deal with for the next X amount of seconds and throws it in your face all at once instead. This Ash of War is the single reason why poison builds are even remotely usable now. It's one of the extremely sparse Dex arcane weapons available in the entire game that isn't a katana, and even though its total damage probably ends up being less than what it would have been if you had leveled intelligence and went with the chilling bottle instead, I still would rather go with the poison bottle just because arcane builds are being thrown a fucking feast with this DLC, and I want to keep my options open. Number 5, the Death Knight's Longhaft Axe. I prefer the Longhaft Axe over the Twin Axes because of its vertical hitbox displacement, meaning if you time it right, you can even use the jump on the second half of the unique skill to avoid horizontal attacks. It'll almost never happen on purpose, but it is a happy little coincidence when you manage to hop over something that would have otherwise buried its axe into your lucky stupid fuckface head. Being able to close so much distance in a single button press is really convenient and gives you a lot of control over how you engage in fights. The only thing I'm not too fond of is the B scaling in strength, which can feel kinda uncomfortable considering this is a lightning weapon, but the unique skill does scale with weapon level pretty much exclusively, and no matter how I split my stats, the final damage never really deviated more than 100 or 200 from its max, making it a pretty accessible lightning weapon for strength builds. And if that doesn't sound enticing enough, the unique skill can power armor through a fucking shield bash from a tree sentinel, which was something I tested completely on purpose. Number 4, the Sword Lance. Power stancing HTSs are sort of like impressing girls in high school by showing them videos of your LARPing sessions, but not telling them you had to get your dad to film them all because none of your friends wanted to be a part of it. However, I still respect those who do so with unwavering confidence, and if you are, it might be time for your redemption. For the Sword Lance has somehow ended up being completely glossed over on the tier list of most YouTubers simply because people are heartbroken that it wasn't a sword catalyst hybrid that boosted gravity sorceries. I guess. I don't know that for shit. It's me. I'm bitches. I'm the one who's disappointed, and I'm sure thousands of others are as well, so I'm just trying to be a voice for the fucking people. I get who even cares? Who gives a shit? What the Sword Lance is a fucking monster, objectively. The Heavy Sword Lance has one of the best strength scalings of any weapon in the DLC. It's a legendary tier weapon that's fully customizable with affinities and weapon ashes. It's compatible with one of the coolest new ashes of war, which is spinning gravity thrust, and each swing inflicts 55 stamina damage, which is well above the average for heavy thrusting swords. The running heavy attack resembles that of a lance or a great spear, which contributes to its heavier feel, and it hits like Mike goddamn Tyson 5 months after his prison sentence. It comes with all the benefits of a regular old HTS with some extra stamina damage, pairing well with the hammer talisman, oddly enough, and the unique charged R2 while riding horseback is really fun with the lance talisman, if anyone remembers that piece of shit. Number 3, the Red Bear's Claw. Claw of a great red bear wielded without modification, whatever the shit that means. Did your player character rip them off Rugalea themselves and just slam your fists into them and start using them like boxing gloves? Okay, well, the range isn't anything too impressive, but the first R1 and R2 in each sequence closes about as much distance as a running attack from any other weapon to make up for it. So if you have good spatial awareness, this weapon is going to feel very comfortable for you to use. The distance closing isn't really there on the unique skill, but it does have a lingering hitbox that hits for around a third of the damage of the actual attack. Red Bear's Claw also has a B scaling in strength, but the actual value is slightly higher than, let's say, the Death Knight's Longhaft at 0.62. Honestly, you almost forget about the 45 bleed buildup, making it a nice little surprise whenever it procs. Beast Claws seem to be another one of those status no matter what subclasses of artillery, plus bleed is a stat that's usually associated with dex weapons, making the Red Bear Claw the perfect tool for strength builds to cosplay as malignant tumors in PvP. Number 2, the Shadow Sunflower Blossom. Ah shit, sorry, could have sworn there was a boss down here a second ago. It's divided evenly between physical and holy damage, but the faith scaling actually edges just a bit ahead by 10 points, making this primarily a faith weapon. Normally, I tend not to gravitate towards weapons with split damage because I think it's just signing up for more trouble than they're worth most of the time. But every so often, a Moonveil or a Magma Worm CGS finds its way into the dirt pile and makes you reconsider all your opinions. And after carefully and meticulously diagramming all the positives and negatives and mathematically computing its overall significance versus alternative options, I came to the scientific conclusion that you are tossing around a fuckload of holy damage right here. 16 pounds is also pretty ridiculously light for a colossal weapon, and that's considering it comes with the same poise damage as every other colossal. And if you're a fan of free things, free samples, free trials that don't charge your credit card later, you'll fall in love with the free bite of HP you're taking out of General Ridickhead's health bar over here. You could face tank the open palm of God himself with this unique skill. The only way this skill could be more unfair to your foes would be if it just disabled your hitbox and prevented anything from doing damage to you. When this flower's sunburnt, fucked up face hits the ground, it might as well just take you right to the end credits. Number 1, the Flowerstone Gavel. Not only do I think this is the most underrated weapon right now, but this could be a top contender for my personal favorite weapon in the DLC. Not only were axes and hammers given massive animation speed buffs in 1.12 that make night and day differences in their damage and poise munching potential, but the way the weapon handles scaling just feels uniquely incredible. First, lightning would usually scale with dex, but this being a Dragon Communion weapon means the damage of its unique skill is tied exclusively to its arcane. Secondly, the standard attacks of the weapon itself are all physical damage, while the unique skill is only lightning damage. This is ultimately a good thing, in my opinion, because it means you don't have to worry about losing out on potential damage due to it having to muscle through enemy defenses against two different elements. But this weapon is my personal favorite, not because of its damage, not because it has outrageous damage bonus modifiers versus dragons of both types, while also being a pierce weapon, which is something I almost just gave up hope on them ever getting right. Not even the unique skill itself, but the effects that are tied to its unique skill specifically, and I'm going to explain why. Getting hit with the unique skill reduces lightning damage negation by 23%. However, charging the skill triggers a different, more powerful version of the effect that reduces it by 30%, both of which last for 20 seconds. I think that's the first time I've ever seen any weapon in this game have a boosted negation effect that's determined by whether or not the skill attached to it is being charged, and I just think that's really fucking cool. I always thought charging versus not charging something was a pretty straightforward decision most of the time, just because the only thing being affected was its damage. And with Flowerstone Gavel added to the mix, that's no longer the case. Now combat decision ends up being much more important because that's 7% more lightning damage from any source that I could be missing out on potentially. Here they are. These are my sleeper picks. The only reason the anvil hammer isn't here is because it was too goddamn heavy for me to build around. Even though it's still a great weapon, don't worry. If you use it, it's fine. Okay, that's it. That's all I got. See ya.